Have you ever thought that once you were strong enough to escape the narcissist, everything would finally be over? If you believe that, stop right there, because the truth behind a relationship with a narcissist always hides one last trap, a dark maneuver so ruthless it can shatter your entire healing journey in the blink of an eye. Carl Jung, who devoted his life to shining a light on the shadows of the human psyche, warned us about this very thing. He said, "When the narcissist realizes they no longer control you, they won't simply walk away. They will unleash their final move, a fragile performance carefully staged to drag you back into the old prison." The narcissist never truly loved you. They loved the power you gave them. From the very beginning, you were not their lover, not their friend, not even their ally. You were a psychological supply, the mirror they used to sustain their illusion of greatness. They lived on the energy you gave away. They inhaled your validation like oxygen. But then one day, you changed. You stopped asking for permission to exist. You drew boundaries. You no longer sought their approval. You began to trust your own intuition. And in that very moment, a storm erupted in the narcissist's mind. Jung called it a power reversal crisis. From the role of controller, they became the one who felt threatened. From a king on a throne, they suddenly felt the throne shaking, and that is something they cannot accept. So the game shifts. Until now, they've attacked your weaknesses, your lack of confidence, your fear of abandonment, your desperate need to be loved. But as those wounds begin to heal, the old weapons lose their edge. That's when they turn to a darker strategy, striking at the very strength you've just discovered. This is why so many people begin to doubt themselves right when they're finally growing. Let me explain. Carl Jung described what we now call strength shaming. If you learn to say no, they'll accuse you of being cold and selfish. If you find your true voice, they'll call you aggressive, disrespectful. If you build self-confidence, they'll whisper that you're arrogant, conceited. These are not careless words. They are precision weapons, aimed at your scars, designed to inject shame into the very things you're most proud of. It's how they try to break the new wings you've grown, just as you are about to fly. But suppose that doesn't work. Suppose you remain firm, knowing your worth. Then the narcissist opens the next door. The nostalgia trap. They'll look at you with longing eyes and speak words dripping like honey. "I miss the old you. Always so sweet. We were so happy before you changed. You were much happier before you started reading those psychology books." Don't be fooled. They don't miss the real you. They miss the version they could control. This is a kind of psychological time travel, an attempt to pull you back into the past, to the place where you were still soft, still dependent. And if you believe it, you'll willingly step back into the old cage, calling it happiness. But in truth, it's nothing more than a weaponized memory. And when strength shaming fails, when nostalgia fails, they will play their final card. Jung called it manufactured vulnerability, the ultimate trick, the one that can bring even the strongest souls to their knees. Picture this. You've set your boundaries, you've begun to love yourself, and suddenly they appear, shaking, fragile, with a story designed to break your heart. It might be an illness, it might be a financial disaster, it might be a family collapse, it might be a sudden depression. Everything sounds real. Some of it might even be partly true. But remember, Jung discovered that narcissists are masters at creating or inflating crises, just to reel you back into the role of rescuer, precisely when you are at your strongest. And here lies the tragedy. Your compassion, your sacred gift, becomes your chain. They know exactly which button to press to make you leap into rescue mode, even at the cost of yourself. They'll say, "I know you hate lending money, but just this once. I know you need space, but I'm in crisis. How can you abandon me now? I know you're focusing on yourself, but I just need your help one last time." Each just once is a hammer blow to the wall of boundaries you worked so hard to build. And if you agree, they win. They prove you still place them above yourself. And that was always the real goal. Carl Jung once said, The greatest privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. So when the narcissist unleashes their final dirty trick, you must ask yourself, does helping them bring me closer to my true self, or does it block my path? That question decides everything. Because manufactured vulnerability is not merely a performance, it is a direct attack on your soul, the place within you that longs to be authentic, that longs to be free. Imagine the mind of a narcissist as a secret vault of data. Inside, they store every one of your emotional reactions, every moment of weakness, every time you cried, every time you trembled. To you, those moments were fleeting. To them, they became a map to control you. Jung once said, "Narcissists never forget which buttons caused you pain. And when you grow stronger, they dig up that map, pressing exactly where it still hurts, leaving you shaken." For example, if they once saw you recoil when others called you heartless, they'll attack with, "You've changed, you don't care about anyone anymore." If they know you feared loneliness, they'll suddenly vanish for days, plunging you into panic. If they know you pride yourself on being the good one, they'll twist it so you feel selfish for setting boundaries. None of these moves are random. They are knives aimed at the softest parts of your heart. And so, your greatest gift, your empathy, suddenly becomes a chain. Jung called this the paradox of the empathic soul. The very thing that makes you deeply human can also be used to imprison you. When the narcissist manufactures fragility, you don't just feel pity. You feel guilty for not saving them. And that's the trap. They don't want your love. They want your sacrifice. Carl Jung warned, the narcissist's final blow is never about acting strong. It's about pretending to shatter. And when you see someone shatter, your natural instinct is to catch them. But stop. Remember, often those cracks aren't real, or at least not as severe as they're made to seem. And more importantly, even when the cracks are real, that doesn't mean you have to carry them. This is the moment you must learn what Jung called differentiated compassion. It means you can feel another's pain without assuming you must solve it. You can empathize without carrying it on your back. You can listen without sacrificing yourself. Jung once said, "The greatest privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And becoming yourself means putting your own life at the center of your world, not pushing it aside to be a supporting role in someone else's script. The narcissist knows this distinction all too well. They know you struggle to say no. They know you easily feel guilty. They know you hate being seen as unkind. And so, they manufacture crises, painful enough to make you forget your boundaries, but never so destructive that they truly lose control. It's a cruel psychological game. They make themselves suffer just enough to keep you under their control. Think of the words they so often say. "I know you're busy, but I have no one else but you. I know you said no, but this time is really different. If you leave me now, I won't survive." Each sentence is an invisible rope tightening around your throat. You want to fight free, but guilt whispers you should stay. And in that hesitation, they win. You are back in the cage you once broke open. But here is the truth you must hold on to. Compassion does not mean you are their savior. You are not a surgeon for wounds they deliberately create. You are not a life raft for someone proving their importance by sinking. Jung discovered that many narcissists even sabotage their own jobs, their relationships, their health, just to engineer a crisis that forces you back. This is psychological warfare, not love. And if you fall for it, you lose the most precious thing of all, the strength you fought so hard to reclaim. Because every time you set aside your boundary, just this once, you prove to them that deep down, they still matter more than you. And that, not love, but power, is what they crave. In truth, when the narcissist plays their final card, you should not tremble. You should see it as a sign of victory. Because here's the reality. They only use it when every other trick has failed. You've survived the gaslighting. You've survived the nostalgia trap. You've held on to your new strength. And now only this card remains. When you see them trembling, when you hear them pleading, it's not because they love you. It's because they fear you. They fear that you are finally free. Jung said, "Within every human lies the potential to grow, even the narcissist. But most refuse. They choose control over change, manipulation over healing. And when you stop playing their game, they go mad with terror, because in you, they see the very thing they never dared to face, the true potential of the human spirit." Stop and ask yourself, why is the narcissist so terrified when you grow stronger? The answer lies in the shadows Jung once called the unintegrated shadow. Every person carries a shadow, fears, weaknesses, buried desires. But while the mature soul dares to face and integrate it, the narcissist chooses denial. They inflate a false self and dump all their weakness onto others. That is why they need you, to carry the shadow they refuse to confront. And when you begin the process of individuation, the journey of becoming your true self, you unknowingly hold up a mirror to their shadow. They see you daring to set boundaries. They see you speaking the truth. They see you learning to love yourself. Deep down, it doesn't just anger them, it terrifies them, because it reminds them that they too could do the same. But they chose not to. And that unbearable shame is what they cannot endure. It's at that moment that manufactured vulnerability becomes their final weapon. It's how they mask their own fear. Instead of admitting their darkness, they stage a new play. I'm weak, I need you. And just like that, the old loop begins again. You, the empath, are dragged back into the role of savior. And they, the narcissist, continue running from themselves. But this time, you are not naive. Jung has given you a key: the power of recognition. Recognition is strength. Once you call a trick by its name, it loses much of its power. When you hear, "You've changed, you don't care anymore," instead of panicking, you can smile inside. "Yes, I've changed, I've grown stronger." When you hear, "I miss the old you," instead of guilt, you whisper to yourself, "They don't miss me, they miss their control." And when you see them suddenly fragile, crying, collapsing, instead of rushing to rescue, you take a deep breath and ask, "Does this help me become who I truly am, or does it pull me away from myself?" That is the turning point. Because the narcissist never truly wants you to heal them. They want you to abandon yourself to return to them. But when you refuse, they are forced to face the truth. The power they thought they held was only an illusion. And nothing terrifies them more than that. Picture the scene. You were once a bird in a gilded cage. They opened the door to prove you'd never dare fly. But one day you spread your wings for real. They screamed, they wept, they pretended to be wounded, hoping you'd come back. But if you keep flying, they are left with the bitter truth. The cage was never your home. Carl Jung said, "No one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You dared to face your own shadow. You chose to touch your wounds instead of denying them. That is what makes you different. The narcissist, on the other hand, refuses to face their darkness. They live in the illusion of false light. And that's why they need you. Because when you refuse to be their mirror, their illusion collapses. So remember this. Every time they play their final trick, it is not proof that you've grown weaker. It is proof that you've grown stronger. They will call your strength selfish. They will call your confidence arrogance. They will call your peace coldness. Don't be fooled. Those labels are nothing more than wet rags thrown at your fire. If you believe them, your flame dies. But if you see through them, your flame burns even brighter, burning away every chain. And in the very moment you refuse the game of manufactured fragility, you are doing something far greater than just protecting yourself. You are sending a message. True strength is not about controlling others. It is about controlling yourself. And that, more than rejection, more than abandonment, is what the narcissist fears most, the reality that you no longer need them to define who you are. There is one truth you must carve into your memory. A narcissist never chooses their weapons at random. Every word they speak, every tear they shed, every crisis they stage in front of you, all of it is calculated. They know the exact moment your heart will soften. They know when you are lonely, when you are tired, when you are desperate for validation, and they wait for that moment to unleash their ace, manufactured fragility. Think back to a time when you were standing tall at the peak of your confidence. You felt strong. You felt free. As if you had finally conquered the darkness, and right then they appeared with a tragic story, perhaps a sudden diagnosis of illness, perhaps they were betrayed, perhaps they lost their job and had no one else. Each of these stories strikes directly at your compassion. You look at them and see the outline of a lost, wounded child, and you think, maybe I should help them, just this once. They really need me. But Jung warned, this is the most dangerous trap of all. Because the moment you say, just this once, you've stepped back into the old path. Each once is a brick pulled out of the wall of boundaries you built. And the narcissist doesn't need much, just one crack, one opening, and they seep back in like poison water. In truth, the game is even crueler than you think. Jung discovered that many narcissists don't merely wait for crises, they create them. They sabotage their own relationships, then run to you in tears. They waste money recklessly, then collapse on your doorstep in debt. They neglect their health, then come crying to you when sickness hits. To outsiders, it looks like misfortune. But Jung saw it for what it is, a form of manipulation, creating problems on purpose to chain you with pity. And you, the empath, are the perfect target. Because you can't stand the thought of abandoning someone in pain. You always want to do the right thing. But here, the right thing is not to save them. The right thing is to save yourself. Because every time you sacrifice yourself to solve their self-made chaos, you're sending the wrong message that your newfound strength can still be bought with a few well-timed tears. This is why Jung emphasized differentiated compassion. He said, you can care without being caged. You can listen without sacrificing. You can love without self-destruction. Because real love doesn't come from blind sacrifice. It comes from holding firm to yourself, even as your heart remains open. So when the narcissist fakes fragility, change the question. Don't ask, what do they need from me? Ask, does this action bring me closer to the person I long to be? If the answer is no, you already know what to do. You don't need to be cold. You don't need to be cruel. You only need to be steady. Place your hand on your heart and remind yourself, I have the right to protect myself. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is refusing to play the toxic game. Picture this scene. The narcissist on their knees, sobbing, begging. The room drenched in the sound of crying. Your heart aches, but instead of rushing to lift them up, you stay still. You let them bear the weight of their own life, and in that moment, you will feel both ruthless and free. Because you've broken the chain. You've proven that compassion does not equal servitude. Carl Jung once said, others will do everything they can to make you forget yourself, because they fear your strength. And it's true, the narcissist does not fear losing you. They fear losing their power over you. When you refuse to save them from a crisis they staged, you prove that power never really existed. It was always an illusion, and in the instant that illusion shatters, they finally see the truth. You are no longer their puppet. You are yourself. Here's a harsh truth. The narcissist doesn't just want your help. They want your sacrifice. It's a subtle difference, but a deadly one. A normal person in crisis seeks support to get through it together, but the narcissist, when they create or inflate a crisis, wants you to abandon your own values to prove that they still matter more than you. This is the psychological trap Jung called the ego test. They force you to choose between compassion and loyalty to yourself. And they bet that because you are an empath, you will always choose compassion. Notice the familiar words. I know you hate lending money, but just this once. I know you need space, but I can't survive without you. I know you're focused on your career, but can't you help me this one time? Every line begins by acknowledging your boundary, and then immediately demanding you break it. This is their most dangerous game, turning your limits into proof of cruelty, and turning your compliance into proof of love. Jung saw through this long ago. he said. The trap does not lie in their weakness, but in the way they make you forget your own strength. When you nod to their plea of just once, you're not only rescuing them, you are extinguishing the flame you just lit for yourself. And they know it. They smile with satisfaction because they've proven you still place them above yourself. But you must understand, true strength is not immunity from manipulation. True strength is recognizing the game, naming it out loud, and still choosing loyalty to yourself. When you say, "I hear your pain, but I cannot break my boundary," that is not cruelty. That is mature compassion. That is love that cannot be exploited. That is the resilience of a soul that has grown through the darkness. Remember the path you've walked. You were gaslit until you doubted your sanity. You were pulled into the nostalgia trap, tricked into thinking the past was better. You were forced to choose between loneliness and sweet control. And you overcame it all. You now stand tall, proud of your new strength. Don't let a few fake tears drag you back. Don't let a few "I need yous" turn you into someone who forgets yourself. Carl Jung once said, "The greatest privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." You cannot do that if you keep breaking your boundaries for others. You cannot do that if you keep returning to the easy-to-control version of yourself. Every time you sacrifice yourself to appease someone else, you are rejecting your own life. And that, over time, destroys your soul faster than any crisis could. The narcissist may scream, they may beg, they may pretend to shatter, but look closer. They have plenty of other people to lean on. They have plenty of other resources to call upon. They choose you, not because you're the only one who can save them, but because they know you are the easiest to sacrifice yourself. And this is the moment you must ask, why must it be me who carries this burden? The answer will sting at first, but it will set you free in the end. You are not the one who carries it. You were not born to be a crutch for their swollen ego. You were born to be your true self, and that means you have the right to say no. You have the right to walk away. You have the right to keep your light, even when others try to snuff it out. When you dare to do this, the narcissist will collapse, but that collapse is not yours. It is the collapse of the illusion they've clung to all their lives, and that journey is theirs, not yours. Jung once said, "You cannot save others by sacrificing yourself. You can only save them by being a mirror of what is possible. And that is your only responsibility, to live true, to live strong, to live loyal to yourself." There is one thing you must remember clearly. When the narcissist uses manufactured fragility to hold onto you, they're not just trying to pull you back, they're testing your soul at its deepest level. This isn't just a trick in a personal relationship. It is a battle between growth and regression, between your light and their darkness. Jung once said, "Every step we take on the path of individuation, the darkness within us and around us fights back fiercely." The narcissist is the living embodiment of that resistance. When you were weak, they could control you easily. But when you grew strong, your very existence became an accusation against them. They look at you and see everything they have denied: the ability to change, the ability to grow, the courage to face the shadow. And instead of stepping forward, they drag you down, so they won't have to face being left behind. That is why they will do everything possible to smear your strength. They'll whisper that you've become selfish, that you're no longer kind, that you've changed for the worse. But the truth is this: you are not selfish. You are just beginning to love yourself. You are not cold. You are just learning to set boundaries. You are not arrogant. You are simply daring to believe in yourself. Etch this truth into your heart, because it is the shield that will protect you from the daggers of their words. Jung warned, "Those daggers are crafted to pierce the tender pride in your new growth. The moment you learn to say no, they twist it into proof you're heartless. The moment you trust your intuition, they tell you you're paranoid. The moment you stand tall, they whisper that you're conceited. And if you believe them, you'll begin to feel shame for your own growth. And that is how they take their power back. But once you see it for what it is, just a game, everything changes. You hear their words like arrows shot from a broken bow, loud but powerless. You can hear them, but you no longer bleed. You smile inside and think, they're trying to drag me down, which means I'm already above. And that smile itself is proof you've risen to a new level. The truth Jung wanted us to see is this: the narcissist is not afraid of you leaving. They are afraid of you no longer needing them, because leaving still leaves the door open. But not needing? That erases them from your universe completely. And that they cannot accept. That's why their final trick always circles back to reminding you of the old days, when you were dependent, when you were fragile, when you were easy to control. But you are no longer that person. You've endured gaslighting, you've walked through the nostalgia trap, you've faced the fake tears and the desperate pleas. You've learned to stand steady in your light, and that is why this time will be different. When they stage a crisis, you will not panic. When they cry, you will not rush in. When they blame, you will not take it on. Instead, you will stand still. You will breathe, and you will let them carry the weight of their own life. That is true strength, not the power to dominate others, but the power to master yourself. Picture this. You are standing on a bridge. On the far side is freedom. Behind you, the old cage. The narcissist cries out, begging you to return. They pretend to break down. They plead. They promise. But if you turn back, the chains will close again. If you keep walking, your heart may ache, but the sky will open before you. That is the choice Jung wanted you to face: illusion or truth, prison or freedom. And the truth is this: each time you refuse their game, you're not just saving yourself. You become living proof that people can break free from manipulation. You become a mirror for other empaths still trapped in the cycle, showing them that there is a way out. You don't just liberate yourself, you light the path for others. There is a moment Carl Jung once called the soul's rite of rebirth. It is the moment you step out of the darkness, not with empty hands, but carrying a torch. That torch is the strength you've reclaimed. And now, when the narcissist plays their final dirty trick, you stand before a choice: to let that torch be snuffed out by pity, or to raise it high, illuminating the path of your own life. Remember this: the game of manufactured fragility only works if you forget who you are. It only chains you if you confuse compassion with blind sacrifice. But once you stare it down, once you call it by its true name, you see it for what it is: an illusion. And in that moment, your strength becomes real. You have walked an entire journey. You were gaslit until you doubted your own sanity. You were forced to believe the past was easier than now. You were dragged into the trap of guilt, told that to love meant to destroy yourself. But now, you are no longer that person. You have learned to see through the masks. You have learned to name every trick. And you have learned to stand tall even when the whole world wants you to bow. When the narcissist cries out, "I can't live without you," you will understand. They do not weep for love. They weep for lost power. When they whisper, "You've changed, you don't care anymore," you will know that is not truth about you. That is their fear of your freedom. When they stage a crisis, you will realize, this is not my responsibility. This is their lesson to face, and only when they face that lesson will they ever have the chance to truly grow. True strength is not about never being manipulated. True strength is seeing the manipulation, naming it, and still choosing loyalty to yourself. That is the moment you look the narcissist in the eye and see: their power was always an illusion. You were never weak. You simply never knew how strong you were. And now that you know, no one can take it away. Jung once said, "The greatest privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And you are now living that privilege. You no longer need the narcissist's validation. You no longer need anyone's approval. You no longer shrink to fit inside someone else's cage. You have chosen to live true, to live free, to live faithful to your own essence, and that is the greatest victory. Yes, you may lose some relationships. Yes, you may walk through loneliness for a time. Yes, you may hear venomous words that you are selfish, that you have changed, that you have abandoned. But all of those words are nothing more than echoes from a world too afraid to face the truth. And deep down, you know, you chose right. You chose yourself. Picture a ritual. You stand in a circle of light. Behind you is the darkness, where the narcissist still screams, sobs, pretends to be fragile. But before you lies the road to freedom. You hold the torch in your hand, and you walk. Every step declares, I am no longer controlled. I am no longer manipulated. I am myself. And in that moment, the darkness has no power. This is the final message Jung wanted to give. The narcissist can only manipulate you if you believe you need them, but the truth is, you never did. They need you. They need your energy. They need your empathy. They need your light. And when you stop giving blindly, they face the bitter truth. Their power was only ever a dream. You are no longer inside that dream. You have awakened, and now you live, truly live. So breathe deeply. Place your hand on your heart. Remind yourself, I am not too much. It is the world that is too little. And then walk on, without looking back. Because even when they play their final dirty trick, it proves only one thing. You have already won.